Let's Podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside Eford Studios for the only time this week. We'll explain in a little bit. Thanks to Empire Properties. Thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. I got to imagine today is March 11th. Today is the day that sports wagering goes live in the state of North Carolina, that you are using the Kyocera printer to just put all, like, you're trying to mimic a sports book in Vegas. You have all the lines up. You're looking like the dude from Running Man in the Free City, where you're like, all right, I got odds here. And you did all that with the Kyocera printer.
That would be amazing. I would love that.
I've had more than a few people ask me, whether it's a fellow hockey dad, whether it's other people in the media, and they've all asked me, is Joe going to be okay? Is Giglio going to be okay? I have you until noon.
Yeah, I would say it would be a whole lot worse if I didn't already have a number of these apps, which I already do.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know what you're waiting for, but DraftKings, use that promo code OG24. Help yourself out.
The promo has changed. We'll explain that. We'll explain that when we get into the OG Gambling
But free
Syndicate.
money is still free money.
You're right.
Yeah, like for me, while there's a convenience of not having to drive or flag down anybody to help me, this is more of a, oh, damn it.
Well, speaking of gambling, you did not wear the cursed North Carolina hoodie.
No. It's not cursed.
It's totally cursed.
No, it's not.
To Carolina fans, it's cursed.
No.
Because when you wear that hoodie ahead of a big UNC game, what tends to happen to UNC, Joe?
No. This is my lucky hoodie. It's my second favorite hoodie. It's also my most comfortable hoodie.
But it's a hoodie that Carolina fans have come to despise when you wear it. And you even said it yourself. I saw you. You act like, oh, you have me muted on social media. I don't, because I saw you post.
I know. I was cold. I've turned the heat off in the downstairs area. Yeah. I was cold, and it was sitting there on the chair. And I was like, no. I just had lunch with the Ken on Friday. I won't do that to him. I left it on the chair.
And what happened on Saturday night at Cameron?
I mean, I'm not saying there's a correlation. I'm just saying.
But now you're wearing it this week ahead of the ACC tournament, Joe. I have an idea of where you're going with the OG Gambling Syndicate. I'll just leave that as a tease for later in the podcast. Speaking of Saturday night, Brownlow and I did a OG After Dark from Cameron Indoor Stadium. She was back in the Brownlow bunker. I had my thoughts, immediate thoughts. I've had some time to sit and reflect on some of the things that I saw.
Always for the best.
Some things that I saw at Cameron Indoor Stadium. But I am curious, Joe, what did you see on Saturday night between the Tar Heels and the Blue Devils?
I saw another one of those challenges for Carolina. We're talking about confidence. We're talking about if you want the team to win the national championship, you want them going into the tournament believing that they can do it.
Yeah.
And the challenges and the losses that they've had this year, including to Kentucky and Connecticut, who are two of the teams who certainly they could have to go through to get there. We've seen this all along the way with the Pittsburgh win this year. Let's go back to even the Tennessee challenge in the ACC SEC challenge where they beat that team, what that win means for them. We talked about going to Virginia, even though Virginia is not an overly skilled team. It was an important hurdle for them to win there. And then traditionally, this is the game, the winner of this game, not necessarily at Duke, but the last Duke-Carolina game is the one that ends up in the Final Four.
Yeah.
It just so happens that this year, there are 10 teams in KenPom that fit the profile of a national champion. Duke and Carolina both fit that profile. And if you're not familiar with that, it's having a offensive and defensive efficiency in the top 25. It's both. You have to have both elements. And those two teams are very good. I thought Saturday and the way that they came out in that game and kind of announced to go South Park to announce their authority the way that they did in the first half of that game. This has been a second half team almost all year. To have that kind of first half in that kind of moment, I thought really spoke and speaks well to their confidence and mindset moving forward.
Yeah, that was ultimately my takeaway, and North Carolina kind of cashing in on things that we've talked about all season long. If you get caught up in the minutia of the game, they didn't win enough, by enough, or this player didn't, what Cormac Ryan, he went through a slump, or what's going on with Armando Bacot, blah, blah, the nitpicking that occurs. And I think you and I have been pretty consistent in watching about North Carolina. It's like, y'all are focusing on the wrong thing. Does this team look like a squad that believes? Does this team understand the things that Hubert Davis has been preaching to them all year? These are your roles. You have to play a certain way if you're going to win. And when you do that, good things will ultimately happen. Check, check, and check. And I'm with you, man. There are some psychological hurdles that they've had to overcome this year with this particular group, and they have. And that is going to bode well for them once they get into March. On the flip side of that, getting over to Duke. Duke is funny to me because I like Duke's parts. I like that they can get to a level that we've seen against other competition. They have also found ways to win. But the Spidey senses were tingling right out of the gate because, and I jotted this down Saturday night, it was basically a continuation of the first game, and I was surprised by that. The way John Shire, I went back and I watched the press conference in Chapel Hill, where John Shire showed you about as angry as he's going to get as a second-year head coach. You saw it again after the Pitt game, where he was clearly mad at the way they played at home and allowed Pitt and Blake Hinson to one-up them in that building. And you know how they feel about that building, okay? So I was surprised that Duke came out the way that they did, that they allowed North Carolina to present their authority, a continuation of the first game. Now, they clawed back. They defensively settled down. They started to make some shots. They got it within one. It was 43-42 with what? It was 43-42 with just under 17 minutes to go. And Duke got away from what brought them there. They tried to run with UNC. That was a mistake. There was a 7-0 run that occurred, and then North Carolina never relinquished that lead. North Carolina always had a response for what Duke had brought, and that little slip up, along with Kyle Filipowski, as Lauren Brownlow likes to call it, playing feelings ball, is the reason why I've actually come off of Duke a little bit in March. Because if that's how Kyle Filipowski is going to play, as Brownlow joked in the panic room, I'm sorry, not a panic room on Saturday night, the OG After Dark, Filipowski's big, like, mom energy is going to cost Duke in March.
What a glorious position to be in if you're Duke. You have a team that's going to be in the NCAA tournament. They're probably good enough to win 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
This year, as we thought going into this year, we're going to see preseason number 1 Duke. We're going to see, Duke breathing fire. We're going to see Kyle Filipowski become the next Christian Laettner.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't work out that way. But what a glorious position to be in. Because I'll tell you where the NFL films, sunny day story starts for next year's Duke team. Starts with you show Cooper Flagg walking out of that building on Saturday night, pissed off and embarrassed. That's what you want to see. That's exactly what you want to see, because it's all about next year for Duke. Mm-hmm. They don't want to hear that right now, but it's all about next year for Duke. Well, and I was laughing at Billis going on and on about Roach's senior day, and I'm like, buddy, where's he going? He's coming back next year. He's going to play with Cooper Flagg next year.
Maybe.
RJ Davis, you're like, oh, yeah, guys, he'll be back. Don't worry.
Maybe.
These guys will never freaking leave, okay?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the future holds. Here's the thing. Here's my issue with Duke, as I've had time to think about it. And you say Cooper Flagg was pissed off. I didn't see it.
They showed him walking out. They showed him behind the bench. It was like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Coach K was there. Coach K, constantly next to Mickey, holding his hand over his mouth, probably going.
He's now they've lost all the games other than like a Lehigh game that he's been in the building for.
Seriously, it's weird. And when he was there, when he showed up to his seat, my first thought was, oh, geez, Carolina's going to win. And social media is going to be off the charts about this kind of stuff. And it was evident they were going to lose. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, sir, you need to go back to New Orleans. And you need to go into that Hex witch shop that I went into to find things like the curse reverse. It worked. Okay. It worked. You, sir, need to go that spot and sprinkle whatever it is you need to sprinkle around your seat, a protection spell, something, a clean house. I don't care what it is, because dude, the last 3 times you've been in the building or in attendance for a UNC game, you've lost, and it's not been good. But here's my issue with Duke. I thought, and I was talking about this with Luke DeCock after the game, I thought last year we saw Duke turn a corner, that Shire learned a lesson in his first year coaching, that you can't be nice. You can't be this, one with the environment and the breathing techniques. I'm not bringing this up to like make fun of John Shire. I understand what he's trying to do. I understand he's trying to make sure that the job doesn't eat him the way that it ate Mike Krzyzewski at one point, to the point where he almost was done. And he learned. But I thought last year that what happened at Virginia and John Shire picking up for the team a little bit provided a bit of an edge. And we saw Duke use that edge all the way to the ACC tournament championship. Okay. What I find surprising and looking back, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but this is a year where the Duke mystique at Cameron Indoor is gone because Mike Krzyzewski is no longer the coach. So how does John Shire evolve into a coach in a program where Cameron is not a place where you can go and one-up the Blue Devils? Because let's think about this. The year starts with Caleb Love and Arizona going into that building. And it's not like Caleb Love had a great game, but he had a big shot. And he did because he was a Carolina guy, waving goodbye. The disrespect, okay? Pitt comes into the building. Blake Hinson goes off that night. The disrespect continued by jumping on the press row table and egging on the Cameron Crazies. And you've got this shot from ESPN where they're all telling him he's number one. And John Shire said after the game, I'm paraphrasing here, but I want to apologize to the Cameron Crazies. That's unacceptable. Like those types of things. It was almost his version of the Mike Krzyzewski final game, unacceptable, right? So you're thinking, oh, okay. And then you got the game in Chapel Hill. Like, okay, you can't let this happen. You can't let this happen. You can't let this happen. But clearly, opposing teams do not buy into whatever edge they're trying to create, because Carolina went in there unbothered and they left taunting the Cameron Crazies. Drinks were tossed. We can get into that a little bit. But the fact that there's zero respect in that building and then showing no respect is eye-opening to me. And I'm wondering if, again, this is all in the evolution of John Shire going forward. How do you find that edge that makes going to Cameron Indoor an intimidating place to truly play, rather than people going in there kind of like LeBron treats Madison Square Garden? I'm here to put on a show, and you can't do anything about it. That's the impression that I've been getting about opposing teams going into Cameron Indoor Stadium this year. Maybe I'm off base, but that's the feel that I get having gone to a bunch of games this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an evolution for John, certainly in his career arc. But I think one thing that you and I see very differently, which is kind of surprising to me, college basketball is a year-to-year proposition.
It is.
Even Carolina this year, with Baycott and Davis as holdovers, had to bring in a whole new crew around them to make this thing work.
And they've bought in.
But
That's key.
But what I'm saying about like next year, it's a whole new crew for Duke. That guy's going to be a singular star next year. It's going to be completely different.
But is he going to buy in?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're either wired that way or you ain't.
I guess that's the question.
Either you is or you ain't.
I guess that's the question. And maybe to your point, maybe a Duke team is that.
Filipowski's not wired. It's not wired that way.
No,
that's not who he is.
Filipowski, as I saw somebody joke on social media, acquired the what do you call it? The gemstones, the Infinity Stones. He acquired the final Infinity Stone to be a Duke player that people just cannot stand. So congratulations. You can't do anything about his face. I get that. I'm in the same boat. I can't do anything about my face. It gives me away sometimes. But you can't stick your leg out, dude. Like, you just can't stick your leg out. And then after the game, be like, oh, I didn't know if anybody was around me.
What was weird?
Harrison Ingram put his hands on your back. What are you talking about?
What was weird is he finally asserted himself in the second half of that game. Like, that's how he should have been playing from the beginning of this year.
Right.
And
you got to find that edge, man.
Why it took that long for him to get there, I don't know.
But you see what I'm saying about Duke?
Again, what a glorious position to be in, though.
Yeah, I guess.
You're good enough this year. And next year, it's about next year.
I guess.
That's what it is for them.
I guess that's the case.
Carolina, though, is about this year. And I think, this might be where this whole, like, hey, what do we think of the ACC seeps into that selection room. And I fear for that for Carolina, because I think they absolutely deserve to be the number one seed out west.
I mean, depending on what happens in the ACC tournament, yeah. Like they're not going to...
You're wearing the hoodie.
No, I know, but they're not going to shit their pants in DC.
I don't know. You're wearing the hoodie.
So it's possible. It's in play.
What they've done. But like, this is where it's going to be like, well, watch Kentucky or Auburn win the SEC championship and all it become, well, no.
Yeah.
The SEC deserves a number one seed.
I see what you're saying.
Even if it's not Tennessee.
Sure.
But by the way, Carolina beat Tennessee. So we have a data point there. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is where I can't stress this enough. You don't want to be with UConn.
No.
You don't want to be there.
No.
Bracket luck is the realest fucking thing on the planet, but you don't want to be with them. I promise you don't want to be with them. You want to be number one out west. You don't want to be anywhere near the Huskies. That's what you want.
One last point before we move on to other things in the ACC about the end of game and the water bottle tossing and everything else. The only thing that I ask is that people stay consistent with stuff. And after Wake Forest stormed the court, we had a week's worth of content, a week's worth of discussion about court storming and ban it.
Well, not we, but
I know you and I were like, whatever, it happens. There's really nothing you can do about it. Also, it really affects one team. Like, come on now. So like, let's not get too worked up about it. But like Jay Billis, in all the, in the ramping up of how to handle court storming was, arrest them. So
easy. Let's just
I put out
simmer.
a video. I put out a video, okay, of the end of the game sequence with Carolina waving goodbye and taunting the fans after the fans had taunted them all game long. Whatever.
And before.
And like, I have zero issue with either of that, by the way. That's just what it is. That's what this is. And I find it weird that people clutch pearls over this kind of stuff as if it hasn't been happening for 50 years. It basically tells me, man, when's the last time you actually went to a basketball game? I mean, you want to go to the Big East? Go to the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden? I can tell you some things that are said. Anyway, so I had zero issue with that. But here's what I do have an issue with. If you're going to spend a week's worth of time working yourself up into a lather over, well, arrest the kids, am I going to get the same energy from the same people when things were tossed at players at Cameron Indoor Stadium? And Jay Billis, who never really responds on Twitter, I guess after the people had been tweeting him enough based off the video that I had put out, like, oh, is Jay Billis going to comment on this? He's going to come. He finally did get into the comment section of what somebody had said. And he was like, yeah, if we have time for it. I mean, it's championship week and all these other things. Like, oh, so wait a minute. So what you're saying is, this is when people in our business give the game away. You don't really care. You just have to understand you got time to fill. And when you're in a weird spot post Super Bowl, there's nothing really going on in the NFL. People aren't engaged with the NBA yet. Oh, it's time to talk about college basketball. What's the easiest in? Yeah, court storming. I got to take on that. But now suddenly when it's championship week, you don't have time to talk about it? I just find that interesting.
You know who the only loser was in those drinks being thrown? Because they're not beers.
No.
They're not even, there might have been some sodas there.
There's some soda in there, yeah.
The media, the people sitting on press row. That was the only losers. They were the ones who got doused, not the players.
Yeah.
Our friend Joey Doster, like
he
the
got
security,
tossed.
They're the ones who got doused.
Yeah. Oh,
not the players.
Speaking of Wake Forest, speaking of Lucky Charms, it has to be said. The license plate show.
1-0, baby.
The license
My
plate.
Teeks are coming to DC. You better be ready.
The license plate is working, ladies and gentlemen. After one game, we'll see what happens.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to Enovana for sponsoring Housekeeping. Check them out online, ENOVANA.com. Green Cleaning Solutions. I've mentioned this before, and I cannot stress it enough. March is a wild time of the year for you, for me, Kelly and the kids, and all the things that we're running around. We don't have time, man. The last thing I want to do on the weekend is clean the house. I want to sit on the couch, watch some basketball, maybe read a book, listen to music. I don't want to clean the house. Enovana can do that for you. ENOVANA.com. So big thanks to them. Big thanks to people who've been buying shirts from Breaking Tea. My entire ACC tournament wardrobe will be Breaking Tea. Got to rep the brand, Joe. Always be repping the brand. So head on over to breakingtea.com/OG. They got some new UNC shirts up, by the way. Cormac Ryan, Breaking people. Breaking Tea, yeah. They got some the whole point of Breaking Tea is to get you t-shirts that this just happened. You want to remember it? You want to remember that moment? Buy this t-shirt. They're great at it. They got a whole bunch of stuff that they just put out, including the John Shire quote, "I'm sorry." It goes up there with the unacceptable and acceptable. I think the Breaking t-shirt is not sorry from a UNC perspective. So again, go to breakingtea.com/OG. Big thanks to Matt Davis at State Farm for sponsoring Ovia's and Gilio. Check them out. InsureGarner.com, theoginsurance.com. Call them directly at 919-779-8277. And of course, big thanks to Breeze Through for sponsoring us. Check them out, breezethrough.com. Locations across the triangle. I believe you and I will be loading up at the Breeze Through before we head out to DC tomorrow. Very excited about that.
I got gas after the Canes game last night. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, they have gas.
How about that? One quick housekeeping note before we get into the OG Gambling Syndicate. Today is our normal show. The rest of the week is going to be all over the place.
This is news for me. Yeah. What do we got?
Well, I thought we talked about this.
I feel like we did, but now that we actually have the bracket.
Oh, right. So essentially what's going to happen is we're going to head up to DC tomorrow for the ACC tournament, and we'll bring you something live on the YouTube channel after the NC State game.
Okay. So State plays at 4:30 tomorrow. Okay.
So we'll do that. And then on Wednesday,
our Deeks play at 2:30.
Depending on what happens with NC State.
Oh, crikey. Yeah, they would play too.
Yeah, depending on what happens with NC State, we'll just do one show Wednesday, just kind of recap it.
Post
the
State?
Afternoon. Yeah, post State. Because it would be, who would be first?
Deeks at 2:30. State Syracuse would be 7 p.
Okay, then we'll do a show after State Cuse to kind of recap the day.
Okay.
All right.
If State doesn't.
Now, if State loses
to Louisville,
we'll still just do a show at some point Wednesday.
And I'll text Chris Holtman's agent.
Sure.
During the show.
You should do that. Yes.
Okay.
You should do that. Then Thursday, we have
the Heels at noon. Then potentially Wake at 2:30.
Yes.
And then potentially Duke at, definitely Duke at 7.
Yeah, Duke plays at 7 o'clock.
Yes.
So we'll do 2 shows on.
Wait a second. Did we avoid all of the late games?
We did. Bless.
See?
Bless.
It's the sweatshirt. I told you it's good luck.
So we'll do that. And then Friday night, we'll just do a recap of the evening semifinals.
Okay. So we're late.
Yeah. So
late.
Nap. That's after dark on Friday night.
Okay.
And then we're coming home Saturday.
Okay.
You good? It's all on the fly, and all this stuff will be live. All right. We'll do it live. We're going live on the YouTube channel after these games, and obviously the podcast will follow. So just be on the lookout for that. All right, time for the OG Gambling Syndicate. It's the day. Today is the day, folks. I mean, it's 9:09 as of the recording of this podcast. In just a few hours, we'll be live. And DraftKings is the app that you need to be downloading. Before we get into the DraftKings details, though, you got some picks for our inaugural sports wagering day.
My first legal bet in the state of North Carolina will be last call for basketball, Joe. That's what I'm calling this ACC tournament. The Clemson Tigers have never won this tournament.
Yeah.
The league is going to die. The league cannot die. The league cannot die until the Iptayers win the true ACC championship.
Yeah.
You can get right now on DraftKings, you can get Clemson plus 850. That means if you bet $100, you will win $850 if the Clemson Tigers are the last team standing in DC. And if you look at the handy dandy bracket, which you can actually pull up on the Twitters if you really wanted to, but I'll just flash it. What a dream, sir. What a dream. They potentially get the BC. They get BC Miami winner. Then they get a garbage Virginia team after that. They've already beaten Duke once. I wonder what the whistle will look like in DC. And then they've already beaten Carolina in Carolina, so why can't they beat them in DC?
I'm with it.
So give me the Clemson Tigers, Joe Girard, fulfilling the mighty Gemstone Boeheim prophecy.
I'm going futures.
That is a future.
No, my futures will be on the Carolina Hurricanes, though.
Your very first bet today is a future on the Carolina Hurricanes. So you and Roy Cooper.
So me and Roy Cooper, to win the division, the Carolina Hurricanes are plus 125.
Okay. They're in second place right now.
To win the conference, the Carolina Hurricanes are currently plus 400.
4-1.
And then to win it all, they are plus 800.
Okay.
So I'm just going to put $20 down on each one of those. Win the division.
Okay.
Win the conference. Win the whole damn thing. Joe, they look good this weekend.
They
They looked
Now,
good this weekend.
Calgary is an AHL team.
I get that, but they looked good.
But
They looked good.
they were slinging the puck around yesterday, and I was like, ooh.
I'm a fan.
Hey, girl.
I was a fan of that. So big thanks to DraftKings for sponsoring Ovies and Giglio. Use that promo code OG24. Today is the day. And DraftKings also wants you to know that they are the official sports betting partner of NASCAR. So you can legally bet on all your favorite sports anytime, anywhere, right here in North Carolina, thanks to our friends at DraftKings. For a limited time, new customers who sign up with the promo code OG24 and bet $5 will receive $200 instantly in bonus bets. So DraftKings has the best features, including same-game parlays, which are my favorites, player props, and more with fast and easy payouts right at your fingertips. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now using the promo code OG24. Bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code OG24. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. 21 plus, North Carolina only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook/NC. NASCAR is not a sponsor of this promotion and is used under license. So, the Wolfpack. There was no law of the Wolf to close out the season.
No, Pitt's a good team.
They just lost. They just straight up lost all their games going forward. And that puts us in a position where they're playing Tuesday 4:30 at the ACC tournament. And on the YouTube thumbnail, I just put the little blurb, and on the podcast headline, I put the little blurb, Kevin Keatts' last stand. I got to imagine that given the way the season has played out the string, and depending on what happens in Washington, the discussion around Kevin Keatts and his future at NC State will only hit a fever pitch. They're not going to make the tournament outside of winning the ACC tournament.
Right.
And if you lose out the string and just when you had an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament and you just fell apart the way that you did, I really don't know how other way to put it other than Boo Corrigan's going to have a serious sit down with Kevin Keatts and see where the future of this program is going. And it gets back to what we talked about last week. My simple question being, in Boo Corrigan's mind, the AD at NC State, when did the actual clock start for Kevin Keatts? Is it the totality of his time at NC State? Or is it after you've had that conversation with him in 22, as you like to point out, about what do you need? Changes in the staff, changes with NIL, roster management, everything else. How can you make it better going forward? You got last year with the NIL roster construction. It worked. This year, it didn't. How does Boo Corrigan handle that? I do not know. Because like you like to point out, Joe, the conversations that take place over at Weisinger are different than the conversations that we might be having out in the streets.
And I think there's a big financial component to it. Now, that doesn't mean it's a prohibitive hurdle, particularly if they lose Tuesday to Louisville. I mean, then there's no choice to be made. But I do think behind the scenes, there is some number crunching going on in terms of, you got to remember, it's not just buying Kevin out at 5.4, it's buying out the rest of the staff.
Yeah.
That gets you closer to like a $9 million buyout. Now think about it. You're going to have to spend probably another 8 to 9 to hire another whole staff, assuming it's not one of my choices, which again, the odds of NC State doing something that I think they should do are always going to be low, right? So that's another 8 to 9. And then realistically, it's not from your budget per se, but after spending $1 million this year on NIL and watching a Rob Dillingham do what he's doing at Kentucky, watching, as your point, Hunter Salas do what he's doing at Wake Forest and being hesitant to spend that necessary level to get those guys and rather try to nickel and dime it by paying, 9, 10 guys instead of like 1 or 2 at a higher level. That's another $2 million that you're looking at. Now, again, that's not from your budget. That's an NIL budget. But ultimately, you have to ask the question, if college basketball is truly a year-to-year proposition, would it make more sense to save that money and give Kevin another chance. To your point about the clock, that's the question that Boo needs to answer. I don't have that answer.
Here's the other question.
I don't have a body of work from Boo either.
No, we don't.
He has been very laissez-faire, and that can work as a leadership style, particularly after you contrast that to the way that Debbie Yao was his predecessor. I get all of that. Like there are pros and cons to all of this for him. His number one public role had been as the head of the college football playoff committee. That kind of blew up on him in the way that it worked out for Florida State in the ACC. So I don't know. And I think people who are sitting here saying, oh, he's going to do this or he's going to do that, unless it's coming from him directly, which he is not. He's also not a media glad-hander type person. It's not what he does.
That's fine. I mean, you don't have to be.
No, you don't. But this is all my way of saying, you might sit here and say, oh man, I'm through with Kevin and I'm ready for a change and I'm ready for all this. But I just don't know if that's exactly where Boo is, or that's exactly the same conversation that they're having over there. That's all.
Here's my question. Boo could want Kevin Keatts to come back, right?
I suspect he probably does.
Okay.
I suspect.
That's fine. The question is, the people that you're asking to give you money,
for sure,
do they want Kevin Keatts back? That, hey, we're willing to give you the $2 million that's necessary to build a better roster, but we want to give that $2 million to another coach.
Sure.
Because that's also in play. It's like, financially, yeah, I'm ready to commit to NC State basketball. I understand what it takes to build a roster now. Like, the message has been received. If you want to compete, there's a financial commitment that's necessary to do it and getting players. It is what it is. But you go, but I don't trust Kevin Keatts to be the one that when we bring these guys in can get the most out of that roster. Because that's another conversation Boo Corrigan's going to have with the money people. Because remember, he's got to pay for stuff, but now we're asking boosters to truly pay beyond just the buyout.
Don't forget the number one booster in his family, though, are in Kevin's corner.
Yes.
The Murphy family.
Yes.
So that's the other part of it. When you start asking people for a buyout, well, the Murphys are the first one you're going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be like, hey, are you sure? So,
yeah,
again, these are all 2024 issues and problems.
What's the biggest?
If they lose on Tuesday to a terrible situation in Louisville, I don't think Louisville's a terrible team. They're just in a terrible situation.
They're in a bad situation, yeah.
Right? If they lose that game, then you have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
You got to bite the bullet. But you have to be clear to the fan base, hey, we're getting a new coach. Yes, but it's 2024.
Right.
And there are new issues involved here. Like, you could be freaking Everett Case and John Wooden and Jim Valvano and come back here.
Yeah.
And you're not going to win without the financial commitment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way to win in 2024.
What went wrong for NC State this year?
Ultimately, I think the construction of this team was the problem. There are people who will tell you, after the Clemson game, what happened, right? They lose to Syracuse in the game. They give up 55 points.
Yeah.
I'm not absolving that this team looked like they saved their season after going down to Clemson and winning.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at the way this team was put together, and it was this is not me, to be very clear, this is not me blaming Casey Morcell or Jaden Taylor.
I got you.
What I'm saying is, you put a team together thinking, hey, we're going to have DJ Horn, Jaden Taylor, and Casey Morcell as perimeter scorers. We're going to have DJ Burns as a post scorer, and we've bought in two bigs in Diarra and Middlebrooks to help Burns. I think Horn has done his job. I think Middlebrooks and Diarra have done their jobs. Those other three guys, the other two guards haven't scored at the level that they needed them to score at or shoot at. And then, DJ Burns showing up in the way that he did, even despite his own personal protestation that he plays better when he's bigger,
there's a balance to that.
Yeah.
There's a balance to that.
And then, the other part of that is MJ Rice. This is another guy that they spent money on. Cam Woods is a guy, believe it or not, that they spent money on. Again, I think their thought process was, we're going to, instead of paying Rob Dillingham $1 million or whatever his number was, they're like, no, we'll just go out and get 7, 8, 9 guys.
Mm-hmm.
We'll give a chunk to, instead of giving one guy the big payout.
It's I can go to a big box store and get the name brand item, or I
Right.
can go online and find like some 3D printed model with a name generated, knockoff and see if it works for me. Sometimes it does.
And
I've purchased some really good products off Amazon that have funky names that were clearly put through an AI name generator. And I don't know where it came from, but you know what? I saved about $50, so I'll take it.
one thing I'll be clear about, I don't hate the premise of what they tried to do.
No, I don't.
And I think this is something that's going to happen year over year.
Mm-hmm.
Even at Carolina.
Well, we already saw it.
There are no guarantees in the portal. You can make educated guesses.
You can.
Same with high school players.
Mhm.
Like I'm telling you, I think Cooper Flagg's going to be
the
that
real
guy.
one. He's going to be the real
Right?
one. Right.
So
Maybe.
Look at what Rob Dillingham's doing at Kentucky. He's a cog. Like he made a choice. In my opinion, I always thought NIL would be an equalizer in the sense that you could go to a Rob Dillingham and say, wouldn't you rather be the guy here rather than one of the guys there?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work out that way. And we'll see what Kentucky ends up doing in the NCAA tournament.
Big thanks to Homefield for sponsoring Ovias and Giglio. It is third month mania. They got new stuff coming out every day. Great throwback, vintage inspired shirts. You can check them out, homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG23 to save 15% off your order. Again, that's OG23. Big thanks to Two Roosters for jumping on the Ovias and Giglio bandwagon. TwoRoosters.com. You can check out the different flavors that they got rotating at their various locations. I know I got essentially two home bases. I got the Person Street one, and I got the Lake Boone Shopping Center one as well.
I have some breaking news for you too.
Uh-oh.
That even you don't know.
What do I not know?
The OG Live, Sleek Fleet OG Live is going to be at the Longleaf Swine on March 21st. That's a Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
That's the first day of the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
Jared texted me Sunday. And he said, hey, I know the Longleaf guys. Do you think they'd be okay if I bought over a couple of gallons of ice cream for OG Live on Thursday?
Let's go.
And I
texted
Adam. Congratulations to Adam on some wedding nuptials over this weekend.
That's right.
Congrats to him. Adam texted me back. Yeah, man, all good.
Let's go.
And I was like, uh-oh, we're going to have drunk Giglio gambling on the NCAA tournament, eating a Frito pie, drinking shorties, and chasing it with bourbon coffee roosters. That, as Jim Valvano like to say, is a full day.
Yes, it will be full. You will be full. You might pass out right there.
Let's hope.
You know what? It's a concrete floor, so your back and neck will thank you.
It'll be beautiful.
All right, Joe, let's play the game that's sweeping the nation. Can you tell if the Carolina Hurricanes won a hockey game based on the comments of head coach Rod Brind'Amour? All right, Joe, let's see what Rod has to say about yesterday's game against Calgary.
Overall, solid game, and you're happy that we got, especially a back-to-back. I mean, they had it back too. You could see they were a little sluggish, I think, if you asked them.
Rod, you got within 2 points of the Rangers tonight. You've been chasing them pretty much the entire season. Got it coming into this week. Is it important to win the Metro or just win as many games as possible? See where it stacks up.
Well, I mean, you want to win every game. And,
Hold on, pause. I want to play that back. It's this part right here. It's this part right here.
well, I mean,
he was laboring.
you want to win every game, and if that ends up that we get first, that's great. But I mean, it's about getting in there, and it doesn't matter who you're going to end up playing. It's going to be a solid team, so we got to get there first.
Canes won 7-2 last night.
That's the best I've seen the Canes play since like an early Tampa win 2 years ago, where they played keep away from Tampa.
Yeah.
Who was a 2-time cup winner and coming into the building. And it was like one of those type of games.
Right.
They were absolutely dominant. Yes. Particularly in the first period, to Rod's point, which he got around to being like, yeah, we were great in the first period.
Yeah.
And then the second period, they scored 2 goals in the first 75 seconds of the second period. And I'm like, what is, and all of them were like give and go, tic-tac-toe, like I don't know what the equivalent of like the 89 Niners is in hockey. I guess like the Russians, although they lost, but
they
like,
were the
it was like
they were basically NES hockey with three fats and a skinny. That's how good they looked.
I mean, they were amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just dotting that thing around. Look at Aho, my guy was looking really good.
Right.
And I was like, I was getting tingly.
You know, it gets Rod going regardless of a win or a loss.
Yeah, he turned it around when there was an officiating question.
Because just by chance, you should at least even. And when you dominate a game like that, and it's kind of shocking. I like to know what it is all year because it's you get one, they get two. You get four, they get five. That's a lot. That's a stress. You don't realize how much extra stress that is in a game when you have to kill an extra penalty, because that's 2 or 3 chances against that's going to come down your throat and could change the game. So I don't really know why that's happening. Who knows?
The Canadian really comes out when he's talking about officiating.
I was all set to say to him, like, hey man, like I do like to play a game of did the Canes win based on your post game, and then he was asked about the officiating, so I had to pivot and ask him about Freddie, because while everyone is excited about the additions of Kuznetsov, and
Kuzi
Gensel, Jake Gensel, the real addition is Freddie Anderson.
It is.
That's the real addition.
Yes.
So he plays for the second time in 4 days. Obviously did not have to do a lot of work yesterday.
No.
Even had a little bit of a blunder there, a misplay in the third period on Calgary's second goal.
But this gets to, I'm not disagreeing with you, excuse me, in terms of needing Freddie and the goaltending. Totally get that.
Yeah.
And I understand we've talked to Rod enough where he's like, yeah, the difference in a series could be that one goal that you kind of let squirt by. Totally get that. But the Canes needed finishers. The Canes you can win games by scoring more than the other team. And you can overcome a goal that you want Freddie to have back if you are. And Luke and I talked about this on an OG/OT on Friday. And I basically was like, yeah, if Joe were sitting right here, you have a line that can be a hammer now if you want it to be.
I think Kuzi ends up playing with Svetch, and I think that's going to be really good for him.
Yes.
I also think, one of the things, it was Chip Alexander who had asked about the Rangers. We were in the locker room, and it was interesting. You had Svetch comes first, and his English is obviously better than any of our Russians, right?
Yeah, it's getting better.
And Kuzi's English is actually better than his, but you are still kind of asking two guys who can't exactly, in this language, articulate what the moves kind of mean.
Mm-hmm.
So Chip was like, do you feel energized by the 2 new additions of Gensel and Kuz? And you could see Svetch like in real time processing the English to Russian, like, yes, that was the word I was looking for. And you've talked about this a lot of different times. We've done this a long time. Had a lot of different deadlines, and you've said, but in 06, you added these 2 guys, and it was a signal. And I think this is a clear signal.
It's a signal.
This is a clear signal to them. Like, as I told you, we're not sitting pat. You might think the sun's shining for a long time. You might think the window is open, but you got to go for that thing. And I think this is that signal to them.
Speaking of going for that thing,
I
got the beer stick. Shout out to Ron. Ron's a real one. He's one of the fellow hockey dads. He was at the game yesterday, and I was like, dude, if you can get me a beer stick, because I didn't have a chance to go and get a beer stick. I need a beer stick.
Boot. It's like the old school boot.
So here's the thing, though. Like, clearly, okay, so you've got the end of the stick, but this is clearly where the plastic ends. How many shorty high lifes do you think we can get in here?
This is going to be painful.
So let me go. You vamp a little bit. Mitch Northam is going to join us here in a second to talk about the ACC women's tournament, where NC State was a quarter away from getting that thing done. But I want to see how many shorties I can do. So vamp a little bit here, Joe.
All right. Well, I'm going to vamp. What was the security? I mean, I'll ask Mitch this question.
Oh wait, hold on. Let me bring Mitch here. Let me bring Mitch in. Mitch, what up, man? Wait, you're muted. Unmute Mike.
Okay, I'm here now.
There we go. What's up,
Mitch? Before we get into any kind of ACC basketball, I would just like to know: has anyone been as bad at their job as the security guard behind the scorer's table at the SEC championship game yesterday? Like, there was a railing. Yes, I understand that, but the one player's brother jumps over the railing. You were sitting right there. Right there. All of this hand wringing over player safety. And here's a security. Look like a uniformed police officer, by the way, right there. And yet, I mean, that's a whole lot worse than any kind of post-game court storm. That is a real issue. That's a real issue. And I'm watching that going, this can't happen. This is not something that can happen. Yep. I'm old enough to remember Monica Seles too.
Mitch, they do the right thing by just clearing out the benches and, missing the first game of the NCAA tournament for some of the actors.
Probably, yeah. My first reaction was, how did that person, jump over? It looked like 2 rows of press tables there in Greenville.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And then my favorite part of the whole ordeal was once that guy, who I believe is Flau'jae Johnson's brother, got on the court, he realized how big Camilla Cardoso is and decided, actually, I don't want that.
Dude, no.
And
I don't know what it is about us. Do we understand athletes are bigger and better than us? Why do we even think?
And then she is every bit of 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah, man. Yeah. Come on now.
That was a real mess in Greenville yesterday at the SEC tournament. That was probably the right move to just get rid of everybody who emptied the benches. And it sounds like Cardoso, at least her, we'll see if the SEC, my guess is they won't, makes any other suspensions, but she's out for the first round of the NCAA tournament for the fighting penalty. So that'll be a loss for them, but they'll play a 16 seed and they'll be up by 50 anyways. And that was a big mess. And it seemed to me like a lot of people who were there, I didn't watch the game because the ACC tournament was happening at the same time. Seemed to think that, the refs kind of let that game get out of control.
Get a little out of control, yeah.
I mean, ever since last year's Final Four, we've been talking about kind of how bad the refs have been in women's college basketball and how something needs to be done about it.
Your math skills are terrible. You really think that's only 21 ounces?
No, there's no way. There's no way.
You have 21 ounces of beer.
Yeah, so these are 7 ounces in each of the High Life shorties. I got 3 beers out. I think this will fill 2. Because it's deceptive.
Okay. I got nothing.
It's narrow.
Now, if the Canes were selling it, that they were making money off of it.
Absolutely.
So they weren't going to give you a deal.
Absolutely.
You got to account for foam too if it's not,
Well, I got to see it. I got to see if my college pouring skills are still there as to make sure that I don't get foam problems in the beer stick. So
foam's good though.
And I know foam brings out the flavor. I
don't think the High Life is starchy enough for you to.
Yeah, probably not. So
you're right. That's going to be.
If you're watching on YouTube, I am pouring 7-ounce High Life shorties into the beer stick. This is where we're at now. I guess this thing actually goes into the end of the stick. I thought it started here, which I was surprised by. I actually thought it started at the butt of the stick here, but I guess not. I got way too much foam in this bad boy. This is a terrible pour, but the logo looks great with the foam, right?
It stands out. Yeah.
I mean, it really does stand out with the foam. Maybe that was by design. I have no idea. So that's one. I got to make sure that I can do this without spilling beer all over me and the equipment. So anyway, while we're doing this, Mitch, let's actually talk about the ACC women's tournament, shall we?
Sure.
What happened in the second half to the Wolfpack? I thought clearing the Duke hurdle and kind of hammering Florida State. I'm not going to lie to you. I expected them to win yesterday, even though they were technically the underdog. What did Notre Dame do to kind of offset State's cards?
I expected them to win too. Not only because I just thought that NC State had some good momentum going, but Notre Dame lost their 6'5" forward in the semifinals, and I thought that State, who outscored Florida State, 42-18 in the paint in the semis, I thought they could do the same thing to Notre Dame. And they didn't really try to go to that strategy until the third quarter, really fed River Baldwin. And that's when they got the lead. I think they built up like a 6-point lead. But really their problem was, for the whole tournament, and it never bit them until Notre Dame, they couldn't make 3-point shots. They shot abysmally from 3. I mean, really the whole tournament, they, 2 of 16 against Florida State, 3 of 17 against Notre Dame. and 3 of 12 against Duke. I mean, that's 3 of their worst 3-point shooting performances of the year. And so when Notre Dame made that run, they tried to answer a couple of times and they just didn't have it in them to answer there in the fourth quarter. And they end up losing by 4, but, had a couple of good looks at 3 that they just couldn't knock down.
So overall, though, because again, my understanding about the Wolfpack this year was what? In a very difficult conference, I get this, but they were kind of viewed as a middle of the pack team this year.
Yeah.
The fact that they've had the kind of year that they've had, got to the ACC championship game, it's all kind of relative going into the NCAA tournament, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were picked 8th. I think a lot of people thought, just based on last year, that this was going to be another sort of rebuilding, reloading year. And then they come out the gates and they beat UConn and Colorado, and they start ACC playoff really well. And yeah, they kind of look like the NC State teams from a couple years ago. I've talked about this before, but they kind of have this makeup of the way Westmore wants to play, right? When River Baldwin's at her best, they can do that 1-in, 4-out system. And they have those kind of 3 interchangeable guards, and Isaiah James, who played really well for most of the tournament. If NC State had won, she probably would have been ACC tournament MVP. Madison Hayes and Sanaya Rivers and Zoe Brooks as well. But yeah, just couldn't quite punch back against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's dealt with a lot of depth issues this year too. I think they only played 6 players yesterday. They've had injuries. But they have Hannah Hidalgo, who's the ACC Freshman of the Year, the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. And along with Juju Watkins is probably like the heir apparent in terms of like who's the next star in women's college basketball when Caitlin Clark leaves.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a contest between Hidalgo and Juju Watkins.
All right, now the women will basically rest this week. They're on ice. They'll have their selection show next Sunday or this Sunday coming up. Explain to those who haven't followed, and even me who follows and kind of understands, they have home sites in the opening round, but this year there is like the regionals are going to be at 2 sites. So they're going to send 8 teams to 2 different sites in the regional round.
Yes. So this is what they did last year too. So basically, in the men's game, you have your Vegas regional and your Dallas regional and your Greenville regional or whatever.
Yeah.
For the women's side, last year it was Seattle and Greenville, South Carolina. So you had Greenville 1 and 2 and Seattle 3 and 4.
Okay.
This year you'll have probably Albany 1 because South Carolina is going to be the number 1 overall seed, and they will get preference as to where they want to go as the number 1 overall seed. So it's Albany, New York, and Portland, Oregon. Yes, you'll have basically 2 regional sites at each one of those. Someone asked me last year, like, what was the reason for them doing this? And I don't really have like a clear answer. I think it's just to kind of draw more fans into these 2 regional sites instead of splitting them up between 4, and to make travel easier for some teams. But I don't really have a reason beyond that. So yeah,
money is always the answer.
It's always the answer.
That's always the answer.
I just started Kara Swisher's book called Burn Book. She's a longtime tech reporter, and the book starts out straight up. So it was capitalism all along.
Yes.
It's like all this tech optimism. No, at the end of the day, all these guys want to do is make money. Money's always the answer.
The answer to all your questions is money.
Yes. Or if you want to go wire, follow the money.
Yeah.
Just follow the money. All right. We'll close on this, Mitch, as I'm waiting for the foam to die down in my beer. This is, by the way, 14 ounces of beer so far in the beer stick. So I think I can get one more shorty in here. So we're looking at a double deuce of beer. Essentially, you're looking at 22 ounces of beer.
That's pretty good.
Right. I think it's probably like 18.
Again, I went into this cold. I didn't know how they sold it. I don't know how they promoted it. I just don't know how much beer is in here. But yeah,
well, think about it. They're not going to give you more beer for the price of.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Speaking of, it's the money.
It's always the money, dummy. All right. So on the national level, people see Caitlin Clark and Iowa. Got it. You see LSU. You see where the SEC is, right? Is there a team coming out of the ACC that can truly make a run for the championship?
For state, I think they do have the talent. It depends on how the bracket breaks.
Of course.
And it depends on, how they shoot in the tournament. The good thing for state is that they're about to get 2 home games to maybe fix some of those 3-point shooting issues. And then we'll see how the bracket breaks. Are they going to run into a UConn in Albany? Are they going to run into a South Carolina in Albany? I think they would like for that to not happen. Elsewhere in the ACC, I mean, Notre Dame definitely showed this weekend that while they don't really have the depth, I mean, Virginia Tech made it to the Final Four last year playing 6 players. Maybe Notre Dame can too. And then Virginia Tech is your other team, but everything hinges on the health of Elizabeth Kitley, who did not play in the ACC tournament at all this week after she injured her left leg. I think it's her knee, but Virginia Tech isn't saying anything. And I think they're doing that to protect their seeding. This is the strategy that Notre Dame used last year with Olivia Miles, and it is the opposite of the strategy that Florida State used with Jordan Travis.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So they are protecting their seeding. They went one and done in the ACC tournament in Greensboro. If Elizabeth Kitley can play, I mean, she's a 3-time ACC Player of the Year. Certainly they have all the pieces around her to make another run. I think it just depends on, how much more time will she miss? It seemed like they were hopeful that she might be back at some point in the tournament. Is that the first round? Is that the Sweet 16? I'm not sure. But Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, and State, those are your 3 ACC teams that will probably host first round games. And I think they have the best chances of making a run.
Mitch Northrum, NPR, For the Win, USA. Where else you're all over the place, man? I can never keep track.
Yeah, mostly WUNC and USA Today's For the Win. And then freelancing for our friend Aaron Beard every now and then, the AP and some other places.
Team AP over here. That's right.
I know we're not going to see Beard in DC. We're going to see you in DC.
I will be there at Friday at the very least, and probably Saturday as well for the championship.
Good stuff, man. As always, appreciate your help. The women's college basketball coverage that you do is awesome. And glad that you're jumping on to help us out with that as we, because it's going to be, because everybody's lamenting the men's tournament. If you want some action, man, the women's tournament is going to be off the charts, and it has been the last couple of years. Mitch, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, and best of luck with the shorties.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish this thing off and wait for the phone to die down. Big thanks to the Butcher's Market for sponsoring Ovias and Giglio. Check them out online, thebutchersmarkets.com. Went over to the Falls of the Noose location yesterday to pick up some prepared meals for the week. Got the 3-cheese ravioli. Got the 4-cheese manicotti.
Whoa.
I will be doing the signature steak tips tonight for dinner. Very excited about that. Don't sleep on the Brussels sprouts, by the way.
I did not know there was ravioli.
Mm-hmm. The ravioli is not always there. Typically, I'll see the chicken marsala or the manicotti or the lasagna, but the 3-cheese ravioli has my attention. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. And you can buy it's frozen, so you don't have to do it like this week. You can keep it in your freezer for that kind of like, oh man, I don't know what to do tonight. Boom, there it is. And you can actually put it in the oven from the freezer. Usually takes about an hour and a half to get that thing going. So again, big thanks to the Butcher's Market. Also, big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer. Hopefully, I will not need to call them after this week driving up to DC. Hopefully, Giglio's not the traffic cooler, and I end up getting some sort of traffic ticket of some sort or a speeding ticket of some sort. So head on over to wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer. Also, big thanks to Hometown Realty. They're bringing you coverage of ACC's tournament.
That's right.
In DC. So how are we going to...
I need to send Barry those slides if you have them.
I have them. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I put it up, though. Do I have the slide in here yet? No, Anna sent me the slide. I just haven't loaded it up yet in StreamYard. So,
more importantly, if you're looking to sell your home, I know some people think, oh, man, I can do it. It's easy. I read something on YouTube or I watched something on YouTube. No, dude. Make the most possible money you can. Go with the experts. Go to myhtr.com. 6 locations from here to the coast, more than 250 agents. They know what they're doing. Trust me, trust them. Make yourself the most money you can when you're selling your home.
Also, thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Check them out online, bugsbite.com. With Mosquito Authority, they're taking care of the outside of your home. You can lock in for the spring and summer and save money. You can bundle and save when you get Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority.
I'm excited. I feel like when we're going to have a special bracket show on Sunday. You haven't said this yet?
Are we? We haven't decided yet. Are we
Yeah,
gonna
we
do
are.
that?
We got to.
We got to.
Feel
Okay.
good.
I mean,
I
I'm
feel
here.
I feel that one in my plums.
Okay, that's fine.
And just like CBS, we will be presenting the brackets with our corporate champions. the East Regional is definitely the OG Mosquito Authority Pest Authority.
Yes.
That's already set in stone. Our friends at Breeze Through get one of the regions as well. They're an OG. So
We're gonna do some graphics. Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, not even. You just we'll just say.
We'll wing it.
And here's the East Regional presented by Mosquito Authority Pest Authority, our corporate champion.
Check them out, bugsbite.com.
Call in.
Can you open this for me, by the way? Because I don't want to spill this beer. It's the issue with the issue with the beer stick is the fact that it's a little bit cumbersome to hold.
Because
it's not like it's
cumbersome.
It's not like you can put this in the beer holder.
With my girl. YouTube won't pick that up, will they?
No,
They will not
shouldn't.
recognize.
No, they're not going to recognize that. So I don't think I'm going to get a full 21 ounces in here.
I'm telling you, it's 18.
So there's only one way to find out. I'm a little worried about. Actually, I don't know,
Careful.
Joe. I don't know, Joe.
Careful.
I mean, maybe.
That's actually kind of nice. That looks like you taped it up.
I mean, it is art if you think about it.
Look at that. Look at that beautiful
Look at
champagne of beers, by the way. Just
look at the bubbles, baby.
What's darker, the beer or your hand?
Yeah. Well, that's that Cuban skin tone, dude. What are you gonna do about it? Just wait till I get to the summer, and the white balance will really be off in here, and then your face will throw it off too because you'll be out golfing. You got that red golfer face. Got to be looking out for that. I don't know. I think this will fit 21 ounces, dude. I honestly think that's the case, but we're running out of time, so I don't want to fill it out because I mean. It's going to take forever for this foam to die down. That's a terrible pour on my end. I mean, yes.
I don't think there's anything you can do about gravity.
I got the tape right, but ultimately, I'm not quite sure about it. Anyway, let's get out of here on some Hey Joe questions. Hey Joe, these are all made up.
Yeah.
They're all made up.
No,
Hey Joe
they've
questions.
never been made up before, ever.
Well,
this is the first time in the history of this program.
Usually when I'm not here, they're made up. But I'm making them up today. Because these are the kinds of things we've been getting. I don't have time to pull up an actual one, but
you're fine.
Guess who's gonna be a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Our guy. Every day I'm rustling. Russell Wilson is going to sign a bargain basement $1.2 million veteran exception deal because as much as you might not like Russ, Joe, you have to respect the pettiness of Russ.
Yes. His money is secured.
$38 million from Denver. I just hope there's a regular season game between Denver and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the schedule. I'll say this, though. It goes back to the conversation we had with Jonathan Jones and Brooke Pryor. Jonathan Jones from CBS, Brooke Pryor from ESPN. She covers the Steelers. And I think it was Jonathan who said straight up, you're not bringing Russell Wilson to the Steelers if you clearly don't think Mitch Trubisky is the answer. You clearly don't think that Mason Rudolph's the answer. You're bringing Russell Wilson here because you think he has an actual chance at being able to help you win ball games at QB at a bargain basement price. Because yes, the pettiness is there. And Russell will always stay petty in that regard. The question is Arthur Smith and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense going to be equipped to do what Russell Wilson can or cannot do? That's my question.
I think so. I go back to Arthur Smith with Tennessee and how he used Ryan Tannehill, who's also an athletic mobile quarterback. So I think you texted me when he was originally cut, where does he go? And I said he doesn't deserve Tomlin.
You said it.
But that's who he will get. And I think Tomlin, the one thing that Russ does that Tomlin values the most is he doesn't make mistakes. He does not make mistakes. So I think this is the right play for both Pittsburgh and for Russ.
Meanwhile, we've got the end of the Mac Jones era at New England.
I really wanted you to find the Matt Rule clip of him talking about how great of a quarterback, and they knew. They knew.
He always knows.
Mac Jones was. I mean, he knew.
Remember, he also during the Nebraska signing day.
I tangentially once talked to Brock Purdy, and
I knew.
I was in the Big 12 at the same time Brock Purdy was.
I put it on the Panthers draft board, and they vetoed that one. I mean, what are you going to do?
That was on them.
And classic Matt Rule talking about Mac Jones when he was the coach of the Carolina Panthers. But I did want to bring up this thread from Trey Wingo, And he had threaded out the quote unquote vaunted 2021 QB draft class. Was number 1, Trevor Lawrence. He says, still questions. Okay, that's fine. Zach Wilson went number 2. Jets want him gone. I mean, that's pretty clear. Trey Lance was number 3, traded to Dallas. Number 11, Justin Fields. Bears are going to trade him, looks like, for Caleb Williams. And then number 15, Mac Jones, just traded for a 6th. And he closes it out with buyer beware. The sure things are rarely sure. I have issues with this. I have issues with Trey Wingo's presentation of the vaunted 2021 draft class as though he wasn't part of making it a vaunted draft class. This is a break it, you buy it. And I hope, and maybe the 2021 class's lasting legacy is that you can work yourself up into a lather talking about these quarterbacks, but you ultimately do not know. My overall theory about why that 21 class was talked about the way that it was talked about had everything to do with post-pandemic sports talk. We had just gone through a football season where nobody was able to go to games. And because everybody was home and was just watching a bunch of stuff, it led to this idea that you truly knew who these guys were. And because of the pandemic sports talk, you just kept hyping yourself up because you had to sell this upcoming draft. You had to get it going. And that entire time, I mean, people were bringing up the 80s drafts. They were bringing up the Elway, Marino. I'm like, what? What are we doing here? And jobs were like, people were like, you should have gotten this guy. And you should have gotten that guy. And none of them ultimately played out. All that is to say is that we ultimately do not know. And this happens with Bryce Young, with CJ Stroud. You know, like we talked about with Jonathan Jones last week. There are a lot of people, like, let's not retcon how they talked about CJ Stroud last year.
Well, he's an Ohio State quarterback.
Right.
That means he's not going to make it.
Right. Let's not talk about that. Now CJ Stroud is the dude.
Well, everyone knew.
Everybody knew. No. That's not how it works. So just
I knew. But
the buyer. Yeah, I know you knew. The buyer beware really is who should be saying buyer beware. You should be saying it to yourself if you guys like Trey Wingo. That's all I'm saying.
Are you really going to try to get all that in there?
That's what she said. I mean, yeah, that'll fit.
That's impressive. Now, the question is, how do they actually fill it at or they don't fill it at the arena? Are you allowed to drink it at the arena?
Yeah, you drink it at the arena. I saw people drinking them at the arena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they fill it for you. You just have to buy the stick separately, maybe.
I don't know.
Or you could just buy the stick as it is. But anyway. You know what I worry about?
We need to take that to DC. Have you've been to like a German establishment?
Yeah.
Where they have a boot.
Yeah.
And the last person that passes the boot has to pay.
Am I bringing this? Yeah, but fill it up with bourbon.
Okay.
On the ACC's
What, you
dime.
want me to die?
No, on the ACC's dime, man. That's what it's all about.
No, but the issue becomes you don't want to be the last person to pass the boot, so you end up drinking the whole thing. Now, in the boot, I believe the boot is like either 32 or 40 ounces. That's obviously only 20.
Yeah, this is like 20, 22 ounces. I do think that, Brooke Pryor just texted us.
She's like, I hate you both. I curse you.
Yeah.
I curse your existence.
Seriously.
You talk this into existence.
That's exactly what it is. She's like, I hate you guys. I hate you guys.
Well, she better love us because she's going to be on every single week.
Hey, she moved back here. You're coming to the studio all the time now, Brooke. So here's my concern with the beer stick, though.
Is it heavy enough that if you like, could you beat somebody with
No,
that?
you can't beat it.
Okay.
You can't do that. My concern is
because you can't do shit like this in Jersey. Like you can't.
Oh, absolutely not. Clearly can't do it at Cameron Indoor Stadium either.
No.
This would have been tossed onto would have been tossed onto the court. My concern is when you get to the end, do I flip it back around so it doesn't like splash back? Because there's going to be an air issue, and then it's just going to be like boom, boom, and then come back at you. And you're going to have a face full of beer. That's my concern.
Especially on beer number 2 or number 3.
Oh, yeah.
Beer number 1, you probably can manage it. But beer 2, 3, you're also like testing my theory here. Do shorties count? Oh, you're getting a little.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the back and forth is just going to cause more foam.
You almost need to like close off the end, the funnel wise, and just shotgun it.
Am I supposed to like, yeah, what am I supposed to do? Like hold it here? Like now we're doing something else, Joe. Now we're doing something else.
You're better than me.
Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We will see you all from Washington,
In
D.C.
DC, thanks to our friends at Hometown Realty.
tomorrow evening. So safe travels for us. We'll see you at the ACC tournament.